What is
Welcome to Courtney on Health, brought to you by MalcolmPresents.com with Courtney Gravenis.
ooh,
I pronounce it right.
Mazel
Yes,
tov.
you did? Yes.
And
Yeah,
who are you?
I don't know.
Maxine,
I
Margot
can't tell
Rubin.
today. I'm doing too many things at once.
And Maxine, give us our intro.
I'll give you the intro because again, we got to do it. So I'm gonna say hello to you guys. Hi guys.
Hello.
Courtney, Malcolm, how are you? It's after Halloween, and we had a bunch of kids here in the northeast part of the world. You know, Malcolm didn't have as many in the west part of the coast there.
Neary one.
Neary one. I don't know. Got to come to our house next year. So here we are. Welcome to Courtney on Health, a Zoomcast series about how to get through these lingering COVID times with tips on nutrition and exercise given by Courtney Gravenis, registered dietitian with a Master of Science degree in nutrition and applied physiology. Courtney is an experienced nutritional and health consultant in the New York metro area and will help guide you on a path to wellness and health. Maybe one show you can guide me and Malcolm on a path to wellness and health.
Sure.
That would be an interesting take on things. I don't know. You'll probably go crazy. But anyway, well, let's get into the topic today. I'm going to do a poem. It's called Ode to Cake by Elizabeth Ruth Hughes.
All right.
Yeah. Cake is necessary. It's part of growing up, from gooey chocolate fudge to the simple cup. Flour and butter, eggs and milk, marzipan toppings as soft as silk. Whenever I'm happy, whenever I'm sad, when I've got cake, I'm ever so glad. So true. So as the saying goes, we can have our cake and eat it too. Odds are that what is most tasty in that cake is the fat and the sugar. It's not surprising that some of our favorite snack and junk food choices are high in fat. Is it okay to splurge now and then? What detrimental effects do fats have on our diet? And is there such a thing as a good fat? Low fat, no fat, trans fats are all part of the vernacular when we speak about diets and dieting. The truth is, we all need some fat in our diet, as it is an essential part of a healthy and balanced diet plan.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, because Courtney's going to give us all that info.
That's what I always tell my stomach.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with having a delicious and low-fat nutrient treat every now and then. It's best for your health if you keep foods high in trans and saturated fats to a minimum. So Courtney's going to give us some great info on cooking with fats and info on omega-3s and more.
Yeah.
So yes, so don't be afraid to enjoy a piece of that gooey chocolate cake now and then, as it is definitely one of the joys of life. But Courtney's going to tell us how we can do that in a good way. So
Yeah.
Courtney, get us started off here.
Well, thank you very much. I sound like Elvis Presley there for a second. Thank you very much. Anyway, aside
Thank
from
you very much.
but some people like savory, so it could be maybe a piece of cheese that they're craving, a high fat cheese. Anyway, this week it is fat part 2, and we're going to talk about, we didn't get a chance much to talk about cooking and baking with different fats and oils, and we're going to talk, as you said, Maxine, about the merits of the different types of omega-3 fatty acids, where we find them, and if you don't get them in your diet, if supplementation is a good idea. So if you remember, we talked a little bit about different types of oils and fats a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about fats in general. So we're going to talk predominantly today about what types of oils we might use for baking or cooking. For those of you who do bake or cook, for the most part, I feel like cooking is a lot more forgiving of a process than baking is. There's more of a science built into baking that can go really, really wrong with even the smallest mistake. I feel like not so much for cooking. I mean, you can really botch a recipe, certainly if you're cooking, But you can overmix something, like if you've ever made a cake and you've overmixed it, or you put in too little oil or too much of something, it can really throw off whether it rises or not, the flavor of it, the texture of it, the air bubbles and the tunneling that you get in it. So anyway, be easy on yourself, take it easy. If you're not used to doing either of these, maybe go slowly in your entry into baking or cooking. So lots of different oils. If you remember a couple of weeks ago, we spoke about the different types, those that are higher in monounsaturated fats. So for example, maybe your avocado oils, things like nuts and seeds that are particularly high in monounsaturated fats, those that are high in saturated fat, so butter. Remember, saturated fats are those that are at solid at room temperature. Coconut oil happens to be very high in saturated fat, but it seems to be the saturated fats that leave your cholesterol levels alone. So those are different types of oils that you can choose from when you're cooking or you're baking. You really want to look to, when it comes to baking, those things, if you're looking for sort of if you're making a muffin or a bread or a quick bread, using something certainly plain like a canola oil or a coconut oil would be a good choice. It's going to give you a nice crumb. So that's basically that nice moisture that you feel when you're biting into something. We're gonna get really, really hungry now talking about food again. If you don't like that tropical flavor that's often associated with coconut oil, that might not be a great choice for your recipe. Maybe you'd want to go with something plainer, like maybe a canola oil. You obviously, when you're baking something like cookies, you really want, it's hard to make cookies. It's not impossible. There are vegan recipes out there. There are certainly options, but you really want that creaminess of a solid light butter or a butter substitute would be something that's preferred because it does affect the crispiness or lack thereof in your cookies. So you want to choose those wisely when it comes to baking, and realize that there's a lot of wiggle room in a recipe. Now, unlike sugar, where I tell most of my clients, and if I'm asked about modifying a recipe, you can many times cut the sugar in a recipe even as up to a half of what the original recipe calls for, but initially you can maybe start by cutting it back by a quarter of the amount of sugar that's in there. With fats and oils, you have to be a little bit more careful because it really can affect, as we said, that mouthfeel. So a completely fat-free baked product is definitely going to have a different texture than something that's made with some fats. So take that in, keep that in mind when you're baking. I know a lot of people who like to, because I guess they're trying to eliminate fats entirely from their baked product, they swap out fats and they replace it with things like applesauce, prune butters, things like that. This is totally fine if you like that flavor. But if you're doing it for health reasons, keep in mind that in many cases, you're taking out an unsaturated fat, particularly if it's something like a canola oil, and you're replacing it with a carbohydrate. So be mindful of that substitution, because for some people, that's not a great swap. So again, if you like that flavor of your recipe, let's say you're making a banana bread and you replace all your fat with prune butter or applesauce, if you like that flavor, fantastic. But again, from a health perspective, it might not be giving you the health benefits that you're seeking.
What about, like, I remember Crisco and lard. I mean, it's solid, but they say, they use lard in baking, and that's like the ultimate like taste. I mean, is that, I don't know of anyone who bakes with, I'm sure if you're a baker, you do.
Right. Well, it's Crisco, I believe, used to be lard. It's now a vegetable shortening now. So you still can find it. Absolutely. It's just made from a vegetable base as opposed to an animal base. So if you're a vegan, that maybe a move you're looking to, to have, except keep in mind that you really got to read those labels carefully, because remember when we spoke a couple of weeks ago, a lot of these solidified vegetable oils are the ones that are going to contain a lot of these trans fats. So you want a product, and I happen to know Spectrum happens to be a great brand. It's uses a vegetable base. No trans fats per serving, and it's a reasonable serving for baking, and it's a good product. I don't know many people who still use that base for baked products, but some people still do, and it's nice to have choice.
I think Southern cooking in the South, I think they still do.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to, that fried chicken,
Yep.
there's just, it's jam packed with that, and that fried green tomato. The tomato's good, but what's covering it, is a whole other ballgame.
Nothing like Southern fried chicken.
If it's done well,
made by Southerners.
Well, and let me
know how to do it.
Seriously, they know how to. I mean, good fried chicken and a good, if you eat it, right? So,
right.
But it brings up a good point about why they choose, and man, they know how to fry some stuff up. Why you choose the type of fat you're going to choose for a certain meal or dish. So, in the case of something like deep frying, you really want something. You guys have heard of something called smoke point, maybe of an oil before.
Of the oil, yeah.
You really want to choose a fat that has, or an oil that has a very, like a medium high or a very high smoke point. So for those of you not familiar with that, think of it as a product that in which you can fry or saute or cook with, that you can heat that oil to a very high point, which is great if you're trying to quick fry something, or in the case of deep frying, to keep it from burning, keep it from smoking up and imparting a very bad flavor, which is why you don't want that oil or fat to smoke up, because it imparts very quickly a very unflavorful taste to whatever it is you're cooking. So using an oil or a fat with that high smoke point will allow you to cook at a much higher heat before it moves to that smoke point. So that's a benefit of choosing one of those. So for
which
example,
oils have, I know olive oil has a lower smoke point, right?
it's a lower one now, and generally more refined olive oils, which are not preferred. Remember, first of all, they're more expensive than something like a safflower or a canola oil, definitely. And you're not getting that incredible like olive oil flavor, but those will have a higher smoke point. But if if somebody's really asking me, I'm like, why would you spend that money on very expensive olive oil, even though it's, it's refined, so it's not as expensive as extra virgin olive oil? Why would you buy when you can buy a less expensive safflower or canola oil that has a nice, medium high smoke point? So canola oil, safflower oil, avocado oil is a great, very high smoke point. In a price point that I think, particularly if you can find a place for, like, you buy bigger bottle sizes, that might be an option for you. We talked about cottonseed oil a couple of weeks ago, and even though cottonseed oil has a very high smoke point, it also happens to be that oil that is very, very high in omega-6. And remember, the American diet has got a very sort of uneven level of omega-6 versus omega-3. So I would probably be wary of choosing that as an option. Grapeseed oil is got a medium high smoke point. Problem with grapeseed oil is that it can be a little pricey. So if you're using a lot of it, it can add up pretty quickly. Olive oils that we mentioned, peanut oil is a sort of a classic stir fry oil. Obviously, if you've got allergies, that's not going to be a good option for you, but that's got a nice smoke point. Your ones with lower smoke points, that I would say low smoke point, or don't use them heated oil, or more finishing oils would be things like walnut oil, sesame oil, flaxseed oil, and maybe like this is truffle oil, which the oil is not derived from the truffle. It's usually like an olive oil base infused with truffles. So oils like this, these finishing oils, really shouldn't be heated at all. They're meant just for drizzling or finishing, as it were, right before you serve.
Yeah, sesame oil is strong. If you put too much,
yes,
then you're going to bury the flavor. I mean, you want to get a little bit in so it gives you a flavor.
right.
But I know some people put too much in. They're like, no, you know.
Yeah,
so.
it can very quickly overpower a recipe. So you want to be careful with that. Generally your storage for, and I'm glad, sesame oil happens to be one you really need to pay attention to. Oils in general, like cool and no light. So not necessarily refrigeration, unless of course you've purchased, and I do some big buy, I go to Costco, I buy, because I use a lot of olive oil, I do tend to buy it in these, crazy large bottles. This one happens to be Kirkland brand, it's very highly rated.
But according to my wife, the price went way up on the olive oil.
Everything's gone up, yeah, but you'll notice that it's a darkish green, so it protects it from the light. If you are buying big containers of oil like that, or even nuts, I tell a lot of my clients, if you're buying big containers of nuts, which can often save you money, if you're not moving through them at a pretty good clip, you're going to want to store them in the refrigerator for the simple fact that fats get rancid relatively quickly. So if you're not going to use a container of oil in a few months, you should really store it in the refrigerator where that rancidity won't set in very quickly. So keep that in mind if you're buying oils. If you've spent good money on them, you want to make sure you're storing them.
How do you tell if it's rancid?
You'll smell it.
You
smell
can, and
Yeah.
taste. You want to go through that. We
Does
love
it change colors or something?
It can change color, sure, but the first thing I would do before you ruin a dish, and gosh, I've heard of stories, people have gone, like, they didn't smell it first, they cooked with it, and they've wasted all their time and money and energy, and the flavor can be very off. So smell it first. Your nose can be a really good litmus test of what's going on in there.
That's a big thing for me. It's the smell test. If something is like funky, it's gone. It's like, you don't want to play with that. So yeah.
But oils are expensive, right? Or they can be. So that's what I'm saying. Store them in your fridge, or if you've got a nice cooler spot, maybe in your house. I would not suggest, if you've got a cellar, and let's face it, in this country, in the suburbs, mice sometimes are just part of the scenery outside. You want to make sure, particularly things like seeds and nuts, are sealed airtight in preferably a glass or very heavy plastic container, so that these little critters can't get into them, because they will. So again, if you don't have storage space in your refrigerator, find a cool dark spot in your house, nice sealed container, and keep it there. And then move it from maybe cooler to your pantry as you want to use it. That's a way to use it from a cool spot in a more realistic spot in your home.
Right.
So let's talk about omega-3 fatty acids, because I get a lot of questions about that, a little bit of confusion about them. So there are a variety of different omega-3 fatty acids, and just a reminder, those are polyunsaturated fats. So generally, they are considered healthier fats. Underneath that category of polyunsaturated fats are your omega-3s. The three most popular omega-3 fatty acids that we know of are EPA, DHA, and ALA. And I know this sounds like an exercise in alphabet soup and all these letters, coming out there. There's a difference, between the marine version of fish oils and those plant versions of the fish oils. So your marine version are the EPA and the DHA. Your plant versions are your ALAs. So your examples of ALAs will be things like soy foods, nuts, pumpkin seed, not all nuts, pumpkin seeds, walnuts. What's that? There you go.
Yay, pumpkin seeds. I have some good ones.
So they are different oils. Different oils contain omega-3 fatty acids, but that ALA version, so that stands for alpha linolenic acid. Okay, so your body can take that ALA and convert it into the more active, the more bioactive versions of DHA and EPA. But I have to say the conversion rate is very, very low. So you're getting some of the benefits from these plant versions, no question. So think chia seed, pumpkin seeds, like we just said, walnuts, soy foods, absolutely. But that conversion rate to that very active beneficial DHA and EPA is lower. So if you are a vegan, even though you may be eating an incredibly healthful diet and a lot of these good sources of ALA, it may behoove you to supplement with the algae form of the EPA and the DHA. So that falls underneath the category of marine EPA, omega-3 fatty acids. So that's where your fish oils come from. So krill, salmon, I have here anchovies, sardines. Your fattier fishes are going to be obviously your best concentration and best sources of the EPA and the DHA. Now
how about the canned tuna or the canned salmon? Do they have the same amount of
as their
omega-3?
fresh equivalents? Certainly, your canned salmon is a very economical. I actually am a fan of canned salmon for a lot of reasons for people. It's more economical, it's shelf stable, and yes, it does have the same amount of omega-3 fatty acids as, let's say, if you were buying a piece of salmon.
How about the tuna fish?
Tuna fish, yeah, you want to get, now remember, generally remember there's different kinds of tuna, right? So think there's white albacore, there's yellowfin. So depending on the type of tuna is going to drive the omega-3 fatty acid content. So your tunas that are it's a more of your yellowfin type, not necessarily packed in oil, but that variety is probably going to have a greater amount of omega-3. But regular canned, white albacore is not a bad source at all. And for many people, it ends up being more of an economical option for them.
Yeah, just to go with this, I've been reading this book, Keep Sharp, Sanjay Gupta, and he's really talking about the brain. And he was saying the omega-3s, as you're talking about the nuts and the fish, are brain food because it helps, the brain uses it to restore itself. That's very important, and not only for nutritiously for the body, but for the brain itself.
So you got to but some people either don't like fish.
That's me. I was just going to ask you about that. I don't eat fish. So what about the supplements? Is there, what I do eat nuts, I guess, because nuts suit me better in many ways. But because I am nuts, but sometimes, but I've never liked fish. I've never eaten fish. So what's the best way to supplement it? Nothing. I don't eat nothing. No.
So I would say certainly because of the health quality of things like seeds and nuts, I'm not just simply because the conversion from ALA to EPA and DHA is not very great by eating seeds and nuts. They're such a powerhouse of a food. I still encourage people to have it, and you are getting some of the EPA and DHA. In your case, if you're not eating, it's because you don't like the flavor of fish, and it's not because you don't, then I would say combine that with a regular, and I just have a couple of options here, fish oil base, so derived from either cod liver oil or from fish, and use those as an option. You'd always want to, because remember, just because something's available over the counter doesn't necessarily mean you can take it, in large amounts. You always want to make sure that you've cleared it with your healthcare provider to make sure supplementation is okay for you. But generally what's considered safe is from 500 milligrams a day supplementation of a combo EPA, DHA supplement, all the way up to about 3,000 milligrams a day. Again, you want to make sure that that's okay with your healthcare provider. But 1 gram a day, or so 1,000 milligrams, is right around that a very considered extremely safe amount for supplementation that most healthcare providers, again, assuming you don't have some underlying condition that would preclude you from or be contraindicated for you to supplement, that would be a great option. That would be a good combination.
Dr. Gupta recommended against supplements. He said he
Well,
said that's in comparison to eating the fish and the omega-3s. That's sort
Right.
of
If you don't eat fish, then what?
You're stuck.
I'm totally
Not
with
stuck.
you, Malcolm. I think people should try food first, but you've got to work with people, and that we know the benefits. And so you're right. We know that the these particular omega-3s can lower triglyceride levels, so they're beneficial for heart health. We're looking at them for dementia, reducing dementia and Alzheimer's. There's a reason why they've added DHA to baby formula, in the last decade or so, actually longer than a decade now, because they're trying to mimic what's in breast milk. They know that in terms of cognitive development and for birth, after birth weight of the infant, so many reasons why. So, but you've got to work with people on, and if they're not going to eat it at all, or if you have for a variety of reasons, or you've got a vegan who just will not eat fish, again, in their case, the algae form, there's an algae form of EPA, DHA, that would be a great option for them because it's not derived from fish, which
Where do you get that? How do you know to find it?
There's a couple of different brands.
The algae, yeah.
The algae, it's, I happen to really like Nordic Natural. You guys know me, I'm not on a payroll. What I recommend because of the third-party testing that they do, the purification, the purity that's involved in their product, and no repeats. So if you guys have ever supplemented with fish oils, part of the problem is you swallow it, and then usually about 20 minutes later, you're tasting it. So it's a lot of, unfortunately for my clients, like this trial and error. So the two products that I know of that at least have less of that are this Nordic Natural brand. The Nature Bounty is great. And I gotta be honest with you, the Kirkland brand of the EPA DHA is very well tolerated and it's third-party tested. I believe in those products, and I know that Nordic Naturals has the algae oil, the algal oil base supplement.
Is the algae that seafood plant?
Yeah.
Is that the algae? That's where it's derived from?
Right. So if you think about it, one of the reasons why the fatty fish are high in omega-3s is because they are the fish that eat a lot more of that algae.
Yeah,
they also tend to eat the smaller fish that are naturally high in omega-3. So it really is largely about what the fish are eating. But there are definitely options out there, and I think people need to take a look. Like I said, inexpensive options, anchovies. If you like sardines, my mom used to love sardines. Those oilier options. Again, I know they're not for everybody, but if you could cook with them as an option, and then maybe only supplement a little bit, that might be. But I'm with you, Malcolm. Try foods first, but sometimes in this case, it's going to be really hard to get, not necessarily deficiency. We're not deficient in omega-3 fatty acids. We just don't have the levels in the American diet, at least, of those levels that we think are going to help with all the things we just spoke about.
Well, it's funny. I think all my life I grew up with they were saying fish is a brain food. And I thought that was a sort of like a old wives' tale, that really wasn't true. Yeah. Until recently, when I started reading about it, especially with Keep Sharp by Gupta, it's fish. It is brain food.
Yeah. And again, Maxine, back to you. If you like nuts,
then I got no brains, folks. No brains with Max.
Maxine, that explains it now. I understand.
This is it. Now we know why. Yeah. So what? Yeah, Courtney, help me here.
You got it. But those are great. So the seeds and the nut, you guys know, man, actually anybody who knows me really, really well calls me nuts because the amount of nuts and seeds that I actually push through in this house on like a monthly basis, it's a lot.
Well, we do get nuts here. And so I know that I have, that end of it, but I don't even like the supplements that would have a fishy flavor, and I'm very bad with swallowing pills. So I need a lot of help.
Right. So just to give you an idea, they're now this is roughly a 1,000 milligram tab. They're kind of big. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
Won't help me out. Now what? You don't want to be giving me information because I'm probably gonna drive you crazy.
Yeah, Max, are you sure you're from Brighton Beach?
I am.
Because that's seafood places. That's right by
Never,
the ocean.
my mom tried to get fish in me in any way possible. The only thing I ever really kind of ate was my grandmom from, she's was from England, and she made fish and chips. So not the healthiest version of fish, but I tolerated it, somehow. Putting
Right.
on malt and ketchup, and I disguise it so I don't even know what
And
effect it would
Maxine, I
have.
have an option, I have an option for you to consider.
Okay.
Because my kids have been on, and I have actually recommended this, for families with small kiddos. Obviously, a kid could never swallow a pill that size, right?
Right.
So the children's version, listen, you do what you gotta do, right?
I'm taking advice from you, for sure.
Are very tiny. They're like, so think about the typical size of a vitamin D oil-filled capsule. So they're that small. You might need to take 2 or 3 of them, but that would get you to maybe the dose that you need. Again, assuming your doctor says it's okay, and without having the big sort of quote unquote horse pill.
Courtney, when you have a horse pill, can you break that in half?
Regular supplements you can. It is not advisable to do that with fish oils. It's the same thing with almost any of your vitamin D, your fat soluble vitamins that are in that capsule form.
Yeah, the capsule would be hard.
You really need to down it either in this form, because remember, these are oil filled. But like a regular supplement, if you need to, you could probably split it in half. But these these fish oils, it's not recommended that you split them open and then put it in your mouth. First of all, it's going to really you want it to get down to your stomach before it dissolves, particularly the ones derived from fish, because otherwise you're gonna taste it, which you may not mind, but so.
I don't know.
We're gonna work on it, Maxine. We're working
taking your advice. I don't know. We have to talk afterwards about which children's ones you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I'll email you.
Absolutely.
And you can email Courtney questions, by the way.
Absolutely.
Where can they do that? Just so they know while we're talking about that.
You can, so you can, if you go to my website, CourtneyRavenese.com, there's a link to contact me there. If you just want to email me directly, the same handle I use for Instagram, CLG Wellness, clgwellness@gmail.com. So you can reach me. And again, there's only certain things I can, and without knowing total picture, but general recommendations are generally safe. And just, it's always a good idea if you're considering fish oil supplementation, or even the algae supplementation, the algae, I won't call them fish oil, but the algae omega-3s, you want to make sure you run it by somebody who has a total picture of your health situation. Because if you supplement too much, like therapeutic doses of omega-3s, it has the ability to thin blood. So it would be something that you don't want, for example, if you're on something like Coumadin or any of the other blood thinners. Are you going in for a surgical procedure? Well, you don't want to necessarily have that therapeutic dose of omega-3 prior to having that kind of surgical procedure. So it's always a good idea to make sure, one hand knows what the other one's doing, and that your healthcare team is on board with some of these decisions. Generally, it's going to be considered safe.
Yeah, Courtney, as usual, Max, our time has run out. Do you realize we should have a marathon weekend one time? Start on Friday at 8 p.m. and go through a Sunday. We probably could do the whole show.
Stream it on your favorite
three days straight, with people calling in, sending in emails.
Because you do do one live.
Yeah, live. You have so much information. It's amazing. And it's amazing how much we could learn.
Well, thank you.
Anyway, guys, if you're listening to the show, you can see all the back shows. Go to malcolmpresents.com. And I have the whole list of shows since we've been doing it. I think it's almost a year already, or over a year.
Wow, that's right.
Yeah.
We're in season 2.
We're in season 2 or season 3. I don't know. How many episodes do we have in a season?
I don't know. We just kind of making that up.
It's like Game of Thrones.
Something like
Again,
that,
right.
you know, are they gonna make a season 3 of Ted Lasso? Come
And
on.
who's gonna be the queen?
That's it.
And
So,
right now, I gotta let you know, if you don't see me next week, I'm going for my booster shot right after the show.
okay, good for you. I got my booster, so
And Courtney, how are you doing? Well, you're too young.
you're a baby.
My dad went today, though. He went for his, so
Good.
moving along.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
guys, you have a great week.
All right, I'm
And
gonna wrap it up.
You wrap it up.
I'll wrap it up. So, I don't know, I found this quote by, of all people, Clint Eastwood. And he says, just try not to ingest a lot of fats and just try to eat carefully. I thought that was interesting. Coming from
Perfect.
Clint, he's 90 something years old. Maybe he knows something.
And carrying a big gun.
Yeah, well, true. So thanks for joining us for Courtney on Health. To get more info, follow Courtney on her Facebook page, which is Courtney on Health, on Instagram at CLG Wellness. Her website, as she mentioned, is CourtneyGravenese.com. For more shows, go to MalcolmPresents.com and theManyShadesOfGreen.com. Courtney on Health, smart, sound nutrition, strong, safe fitness, and we'll catch you again next time.
And happy November 1st.
Yep, happy
It's amazing.
November.
Bye.
Bye.